Many people today believe that the end times are near, and it's hard to argue with them when you look at the facts. We have been rampaged by a virus that has ravished our nations and our world for 2 years now. At the same time, mental health issues are skyrocketing, and then you see in the news that Ukraine is being invaded by Russia. And at the same time, we're not talking about it, but China is invading Taiwan. And Christians are pointing to this and saying this is showing that the end times are near, and they're actually referencing this passage in Matthew 24 to show that these events reveal that Jesus is coming back soon. And many people are being scared and are worried, and they should be. Scary things are happening in our world. But today we're going to go through this passage and see what it really tells us about these circumstances and about the end times. But before we do that, please leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a believer that wants to grow in your faith and take your next step for Jesus, because that's what this channel is about, to equip you to live out your faith. First off, let's read the passage that they're referring to and using when they're talking about what Jesus said about the end times being near. So it's in Matthew 24, verse 3. As he sat on the Mount Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the signs of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nations will rise against nations, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famine and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulations and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, and the love of many will grow cold, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come." First off, we're going to look at the passage and seek to find the context. Where is Jesus? What's going on? Who is he with? And so in the very first verse in this passage, it shows us, it says that he's sitting on the Mount Olive and he's with his disciples. Actually, his disciples came to him privately. It literally tells us that. So it's just him and his closest followers. And they ask him, they say, "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the signs of your coming and of the end of the age?" And my first thought when I read that is, man, when will these things be? I don't know what those are. It's referring to something that they already know, maybe something they already discussed, and that's confusing. Like, what are they asking about actually? And so then what you do when you ever see this is you go to the passage before, the verses before, and see if it answers that question of what is these things. And so we see the passage before, starting in verse 1 of chapter 24, it says, "Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. But he answered them, 'You see all these? Do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down.'" Right here, he's talking about the temple being destroyed. So that's the context. When these things be, he's talking about the destruction of the temple that Jesus is predicting. And for them, what's so interesting, context for understanding, when they're asking this sign of the end times, they believe that the destruction of the temple must correlate with the end times taking place, that they must correlate with Jesus coming back. What's interesting about that is you have to realize that the temple is destroyed in 70 AD. That is less than 40 years from the time that they are standing there now discussing this. And we are still here. The end times still haven't taken place almost 2,000 years later. This shows us so clearly that they had a misunderstanding of what the end times really looked like. They couldn't see the end times out of the context of the temple being destroyed. In their mind, that meant everything was gone. So that's the context that they're asking about the end times from, and also the context that Jesus is answering this question from. And the reply of Jesus will tell us, and we'll go through What are the warnings? What are the things that Jesus tells them about the end times, and what do they really mean for us? But make sure you stay till the end, because my last point will go through what is Jesus really telling us to focus on when it comes to the end times of this world and Him coming back. So make sure you stay till then. So knowing that Jesus is answering within the context that His disciples don't have a proper view of what the end times are, I believe He's trying to broaden their view to see the bigger picture. Because Jesus may not know the exact date He's coming back, but He knows it's a long game that's going to be much longer and much later than after the temple is destroyed. And so He's here trying to broaden His disciples' view and tell them about the end times. So the question is, how is He trying to broaden them? And why is He telling them the details that He does? So let's get right into the first verse of His answer. And it says in verse 4, "And Jesus answered them, 'See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray.'" Now right here, it's not talking about people saying, "I'm Jesus, follow me," or "I'm Jesus, let's go to heaven." What He's saying is really a warning. Don't be led astray by someone focusing on eschatology. See, I messed up that word, but really what it means is end times theology. People will talk about it, think about it. On YouTube, it hurts me so much to realize that the people that get the most views, Christian creators, ones that talk about drama, talk about false teachers, ones that do false prophecy type stuff, prosperity gospel, and then also people that just obsess about the end times. They do the best. Or evil societies that people are in, or in some form or fashion. Those do the best, which is sad because it's focusing on something that, again, Jesus is warning, don't focus on these things. Don't be led astray to be wondering, when is Jesus coming back? Where is it going to be? That's not what He wants for us to be focusing on. So He's giving a warning of that. This is a warning to His disciples. That man, if you see the temple's going to be destroyed in some of their lifetimes, and when they see it, they don't need to just stop and be like, "All right, Jesus, get me." They need to know that the mission should be continued. All right, let's keep going in what He says here, right? And then He says, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nations will rise against nation and kingdoms against kingdoms, and there will be famine and earthquakes in various places." Think of this right off the bat, right? He's saying there's wars going to take place and rumors of wars. But don't be worried. That has to take place. That's taken place throughout all of history. So what's happening in Ukraine and Taiwan is a tragedy. It is awful. It's something we need to pray for, fight against. We need to seek to share the gospel. We need to seek to bring justice. We need to seek to protect. But Jesus says that these things take place. Don't get talked into that. These things reveal that the end times are here and now. It says these things have to happen. They happen throughout all of history because of sin. And maybe the end times are there, but maybe they're not. World War II happened, horrible. People probably thought it was the end times then. When Rome fell, they probably thought it was the end times. When people left the Roman church to be like Protestant, they probably thought that was the end times. When Great Britain's empire fell apart, they probably thought that was the end times. This happens throughout history. Now, we don't look at it and say that Jesus is coming back, but He's warning us there's a bigger picture to look at. So what is that? He talks about nation, He talks about earthquakes and famine, but these are all things that are just general terms pointing to the end times. And all these are but the beginning of the birth pains, it says in verse 8. Then He says, "Then you'll be delivered up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake." Now the reality is more people are dying for the name of Jesus than ever before in history. Ever before in history, people are dying because they're Christian. And that's scary, that's sad, that points to what He's talking about. But people have been dying for Christ ever from the very beginning of Stephen to the Roman Empire with Nero. And it is sad that it's taking place in Iran and Iraq and in China and all these places, North Korea and places all over the world. But why is Jesus saying this? He's trying to tell them so they can pick out when the end times are there because more people are dying? And He's telling them this to warn them that that's what it looks like to follow Jesus. And it will take place to the very end. And it will get worse, but the reality is it will always exist on this earth, that nations will hate us, that people will hate us because we claim the name of Christ. We don't get fixated on the end times. He's using this to warn them that this will take place, to be ready for it. Then he tells them in verse 10, and then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. Again, I think this is general terms. Why is he telling them this? To warn them so that they're not the ones that fall away. That they're not led astray by false teachers. That they're not the ones betraying one another and hating one another. Many pastors, mega pastors, I feel like in this past year are falling away from the faith in record numbers. People are going into progressive Christianity and falling away from the truth of God. So much right now, it's insane by these false teachers. And if that's you, man, I encourage you, read the Bible for yourself. And I encourage you, check out creators like The Beat by Allan Parr, Ruslan KD, Mike Winger, that help go through the scripture for what it is and open your eyes to the truth of God. There's also like Alicia Childress, I think I said, I don't know if I said her name right, that talks about coming out of Christianity, coming out of progressive Christianity and what the truth of God really is. So I challenge you, go check those things out. But the people are being led astray. And this is a warning so that you don't be that person. This is not the focus to say, oh, the end times are here. People are running away from the faith. It's so that you can help yourself and others not be those people. And with all those signs considered, I think really what the most important thing is to understand, don't get obsessed with the end times. If you knew Jesus was coming back tomorrow, you shouldn't treat it any different than if Jesus comes back after your death thousands of years later. That we shouldn't change mindsets. In reality, it doesn't matter. Our goal is still the same till the very end, until he opens the sky. Our goal is still the same, so don't lose focus. And he shows us this at the very end. In verse 13, he says, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Man, the thing you need to focus on is enduring for the Lord, following after him. Don't focus on this end goal of all these things taking place and seeing that Jesus is going to come back and stressing about this or fixating on this. Focus on living for the Lord each day to endure for his kingdom's sake. And see it to the end. See it to the end, because it says here the goal, again, he won't come back until verse 14 is complete. And the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all the nations, and then the end will come. Our goal is to proclaim the gospel to the ends of the earth, and until that is accomplished, he will not come back. So forget the signs. What you need to step towards if you want to see Jesus come back is to help people know Jesus. Talk about what he did in your life. Talk about the truth of the gospel. That is the most vital, the most important. That is what he's telling you to focus on, not these signs. The signs are only to keep you from falling astray into the lawlessness, to falling astray to leaders that want to push you into the wrong things, into false prophets. That's why he's talking about the signs. But in the end, he's telling you so that you endure and continue in the mission to the end. So what will you do? This is the most important part. Will you endure? Or will you stray away? Thank you so much for watching this video. Man, if you want to grow in your faith, I'm telling you, please subscribe. We're seeking to help people grow in their faith. And again, endure to the end. Again, take the mission seriously than just watching stuff that makes you think about the end times or think about these different things. But seriously, want to see people come to the Lord and see God's kingdom grow and see you grow in that kingdom. So please leave a like and subscribe as we're seeking to do that today. Thank you so much again, and peace.